Hello and welcome back to the Wrestling Group on YouTube. Today we have another rankings video. Today we have Jon Moxley, one of my absolute favourite wrestlers right now. Followed his career obviously for a good few years now. Didn't really watch much of his early stuff in like CZW and that because I didn't know it was a thing back then, to be honest. I've gone back and watched some of his matches since he became a big deal. Watched him in WWE as part of the Shield, and then obviously on his own, eventually becoming WWE champion. Obviously another Shield reunion before he left. I was a big Dean Ambrose fan, but nothing compares to since leaving Jon Moxley. It's just he's a different animal. He's an absolute different animal. Coming into New Japan, becoming the IWGP United States champion, going into the G1 Climax, G1 29, and then obviously coming over to AEW and making big waves in AEW and becoming a 3-time AEW World Champion. So, like I say, one of my absolute favourites right now. Probably my favourite right now, to be honest. If Jon Moxley's name's attached to it, I'll watch it. He has got me into companies like GCW, just for him appearing on the cards. I've gone out my way and watched it, and then I've started becoming aware of other talents that I wasn't aware of beforehand. And so like Blake Christian, didn't know him before I watched the match with Jon Moxley. And then started following Blake Christian's work, and now he's in Ring of Honor and we get to see him weekly. So, like I say, top 5 Jon Moxley matches, going from 5 down to 1. And there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot happens in these matches, so I'm going to get into it. Just a quick shout out to David Anderson, as usual, for doing me the lovely thumbnail. One of the best ones he's done so far. And I mean, everyone's a banger, everyone's a hit, but I absolutely love this one. It's just everything about it's Mox. And so thank you very much again, David. And quick shout out to Corbin. I know I didn't shout it out in the previous video, but I'll give Corbin Skipworth a quick shout out, because without him I couldn't have watched Jon Moxley's matches in New Japan, because he let me borrow his account. So we will start with number 5, and it's against Joey Janela. An unsanctioned match back in Fighter Fest 2019, and this is Jon Moxley's first match under AEW. A lot of people think it was the Kenny Omega match, but it weren't. It was actually this match at Fighter Fest against Joey Janela. Joey Janela's he's one of them, isn't he? He does a lot of hardcore, a lot of death matches and stuff, and I think he gets overlooked by a lot of people. He was in AEW for it was about 2 years. 2, maybe 3 years, and at the beginning he had some of the best matches in the company. This one against Jon Moxley and the lights out match against Kenny Omega on AEW Dark, two of the best, even still now, 2 of the best matches in AEW's history. They are fantastic, both available on YouTube, by the way. If you haven't seen them and you want to check them out, go onto YouTube. Type in obviously Jon Moxley vs Joey Janela and Kenny Omega vs Joey Janela, and they're both on there for you to watch in full on the AEW YouTube channel. So yeah, like I say, Joey Janela sometimes gets overlooked, and especially if you're not into that sort of wrestling, the hardcore style and that. But then again, if you're not really into the hardcore style, then you really shouldn't be watching a Jon Moxley top 5 matches video. So it starts quite well, they both go at it. Joey Janela comes out the gates, all guns blazing, trying to show that he can hang with this former WWE guy, if you like. A lot of eyes on this match, obviously, because being Jon Moxley's first in the company. It starts quite well with, even Joey Janela, when they go outside the ring, Joey gets given a prosthetic leg from a fan. So crack Moxley over the head with, and then pass it back to the audience members. That was fun right at the beginning. A lot of table spots in this one. We had on the ring apron, Joey Janela hits a Russian leg sweep on Mox, and they both go through the table. Mox then picks up Joey Janela in the ring and does like a running tackle, and they both go through the table there. Mox picks up Janela inside the ring looks like he's doing like a Death Valley driver, but he does more of a Death Valley drop over the ropes and through another table. So there's quite a lot of table spots in this one. We get Janela throwing Mox through a barbed wire board. You know, there's one of the boards with all the barbed wire on. So Moxley goes through that, and we get Janela laying out Mox on 2 tables outside the ring, gets a ladder, puts the ladder up inside the ring, climbs up the ring, and hits a perfect elbow drop, by the way, off the ladder, outside of the ring and through the table. So a lot of table spots in this one, to be fair. Like I say, it's an unsanctioned match, but it's so good. You know, we end up with Mox getting the thumbtacks, bag of thumbtacks, puts that out on the floor, takes off, this is sick, takes off Joey Janela's shoes and socks, and then he ends up dropping him feet first into the thumbtacks with his heels just covered in thumbtacks. It's brilliant. And then, you know, Joey Janela just starts screaming at him like, come on, let's go. And it's just like, what the hell, you're psycho, you, mate. Just like drop feet, like barefoot into thumbtacks. I mean, I don't know if you've ever stood on a piece of Lego and that hurts enough, but imagine all these like pins and stuff going into the bottom of your foot. That'd hurt. And so Mox then hits a paradigm shift into the thumbtack. So Janela goes head first into the thumbtacks. Mox gets it all up on his back and gets the free count from there. Really good match, really fun match, and definitely, like I say, if you haven't checked it out, go onto YouTube and give it a watch. It's about 20-25 minutes long, but it's so worth it. And like I say, Joey Janela does so well in this. You know, he hangs with Mox for a good while before Moxley then obviously picks up the win, but such a good match, and I think it's one that everyone should at least see once, and one that people might have forgot about, to be honest, because it was back in 2019, right near the beginning, like I say, Mox's first match in AEW, but definitely makes the list, and it's such a good match. Joey Janela versus Jon Moxley from Fyter Fest. So number 4 is against Tomohiro Ishii in the G1 Climax 29. Now, if you've watched recently, you've been watching Jon Moxley face Ishii a couple of weeks back on Dynamite. Really good match, but the one in the G1, I mean, if you've seen that, like, it is so much better. I mean, both of them really good matches. Like, I'm not crapping on the one that they've done on Dynamite, but the one in the G1 was just like, it's so much better, and it's like a different animal, isn't it? You know, when they just go at it, and the strikes that they do, the headbutts, constant headbutts, they're just stood there just headbutting each other in the ring, head to head, bang, bang, bang. You even get Ishii, puts Mox on a table, climbs up the ropes and jumps off the ropes onto Mox through a table. Like, I think it's the only time I've ever seen Ishii go to the top rope. But it's so good, a lot of 50-50, like throughout the match, it's constant back and forth, and you can't pick a winner, isn't it? Like I say, constant headbutts. At one point, they're outside the ring, and Mox picks up a chair. Obviously, it's in New Japan, and what they always say, and it's the same in AEW sometimes, where they say, you know, it's at the ref's convenience whether or not he's going to stop the match. You know, a lot of them are quite lenient, especially in New Japan. But I mean, at the same time, I like it. A lot of people go, oh, it should be disqualification. No, because that's the WWE way of thinking. It doesn't have to always end in disqualification, because, like, at the end of the day, it's down to the referee's discretion, isn't it? And if the ref had called a DQ, like within the first 5-10 minutes of Mox versus Ishii, it had just been absolutely pathetic. But at the same time, like, I think it's better to have these spots in. I like it, you know. Like I say, Mox has a chair, gives Ishii a chair, and then they both stood there with these chairs, and then they both start smacking the chairs together. They both manage to hit each other with the chairs. Mox throws at Ishii's head. You know, it's so good. And like I say, the table spot as well. We have both of them hitting each other like exploding German suplexes. They both go headbutts. They both do lariats. They both, you know, it's pretty much 50-50. It's pretty much one does one, so does the other. Like, Mox hits Ishii down with a clothesline. Ishii gets up and hits Mox down with a clothesline. Like I say, the one good thing is they do keep it 50-50 all the way through. Where you're thinking, who's going to come out of this? Because And that's the way it should be. Like, Ishii is a massive talent for me. I love Ishii, and I think he should have been world champion by now in New Japan. You know, the Stone Pitbull, he just... And the G1 Climax matches he's had, I mean, you could literally roll off like top 10, top 15 G1 matches, and I'd say Ishii being at least 4 or 5 of them. He's so good and he's so talented. And in matches like this, where he goes against Moxley, someone who's just as, like, aggressive as him, because Ishii's like dead aggressive and like goes at it. Like, I'll watch Ishii versus Suzuki every single day for the rest of my life if they faced each other every day. I think them two are perfect together. And Mox is similar to Suzuki, isn't he? Where he's just like that aggressive psycho, just wants to go, 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 go. And like, they're on the knees in the middle of the ring, Ishii and Mox, and they're just trading blows, and they're both knackered, and then they just start headbutting each other again. It's just so good. Like, the intensity and the aggression in this match is brilliant. And then we get Mox hits Ishii with the Death Rider, and you think, right, that's it. But then Ishii kicks out. It's just like, what's going on here? Why has he kicked out? What's going to happen next? So Mox then pulls down the hard knee pad, hits him with a regal knee, picks him up. Death Rider, 1, 2, 3. So it takes 2 Death Riders to take out Ishii, which is great because, you know, Ishii should be put over, even though obviously Mox gets the win. Ishii was still put over by him kicking out of a Death Rider and having to take 2 finishes to get him to lose the match. But again, like I say, if you'd enjoyed the one against Ishii on Dynamite, then go over and watch it on New Japan from G1 Climax 29. You won't be disappointed. It's such a good match, and it makes my number 4 on the list. So flying through these quite quick at the moment, but there is a lot to talk about, especially in the later ones. So we come to match number 3, and this one's only from last year. This one is from Revolution 2022 against Bryan Danielson. And now this was the start of the Blackpool Combat Club storyline. You know, Danielson was basically saying that if we team together, you know, we could practically run AEW, and that's basically what they've done since. But Mox was like, well, I don't team with anyone unless I've bled with them first. So of course this leads to a match similar to like with Willie Uter, when he wanted to join the Blackpool Combat Club, and they just went at it, and it was just brutal. But this is a really good match against Danielson. You know, it starts off where it's a bit slow and they're both trying to get one up on the other. You know, Danielson tries to make it like a mat-based wrestling match, which obviously suits his style more, but Mox manages to turn it into more of a brawl, which then suits him more. And then they just end up just going at it with like elbows, fists, you know, everything. It's so good. Another one where it's like 50-50, quite pretty much up until the end. You know, Danielson starts working on different body parts with the knees to the ribs, and he stomps on them a few times, and he's standing on his ribs trying to put the pressure in on his ribs. You know, they both try and control the match, try to get one up, but like I'd say no one hits more than 3-4 moves in a row before the next one then starts to try and take control as well. But it just shows they're quite 50-50, and I like the way that the dynamic's been kept in the Blackpool Combat Club, where, you know, a lot of the time Mox is leading the charge, but then on other times, like, it seems that Danielson's more leading the charge. So there's no real leader in the faction. It's basically, obviously those two started it, and neither one of them is like higher up than the other, if you like, which I do like. Because you don't normally get that in factions. You normally get one main guy at the top. We get, which is good, is we get Bryan Danielson hitting the elbow strikes. I love them. Like they've been known more. They've been known more so now as the Blackpool Combat Club strikes. You know, you see Claudio do it, you see Danielson do it, you see Mox do it, you see Yuta doing it. You know, where they get them right in between the neck and the shoulder, and they start hammering down the elbows. And so we get Danielson doing that in the middle of the match, and then puts him in a dragon sleeper, where Mox then has to find his way to the ropes. You know, Mox gets busted open quite early in this match. Shock. Eats a big move from Danielson, busts his head open. So obviously Danielson starts to make work on on the blood to try and get it to flow a bit more. So then obviously as he's putting the Jagger Sleeper in, he gets it in quite good, but probably not as best as he could, because obviously the blood's just coming out of Mox at this point and it's making it a bit slippy, so which probably helped it in Mox finding his way to the bottom of the ropes. And then not long after that we get Mox drops Danielson down, and then Mox does the elbows back to him, which is dead good, especially looking at it now after, you know, we've seen what it's turned into. Is it's become a main thing of the Blackpool Combat Club. The fact that they both used it on each other in the very beginning was well good. He then sticks Danielson in an arm breaker. Well, Danielson doesn't tap and manages to get out of it. So we then have Danielson locking in the label lock on Moxley again, because Mox is still bleeding. It doesn't get the full grip that he probably could have got, so then Mox manages to get back to the ropes again. Mox slaps on the Bulldog on Danielson, but he doesn't tap again, so it's like constantly like move after move. It's like one puts one in a submission, one puts the other in a submission. It was like they were trying to one up each other, and it's like, trying to make the other one pass out or tap out was going to be more of a thing than getting a 3 count. But you know, a good 5 minutes, maybe 7-8 minutes in the middle, where they're like putting moves on each other, like the label lock, like the Bulldog, the Dragon Sleeper, the cross arm breaker, and they're just going hold for hold, which is good because you don't see Mox doing as much, especially back then, in regards to like submission moves and stuff. Danielson hits the running knee on Moxley, only gets a 2 count. So the, what do they call it, the Bisacco knee, hits him with that, only gets a 2 count. But then Danielson then puts Mox in a triangle. As he's put him in the triangle, obviously the blood's absolutely coming out at this point. He starts landing elbows on the top of his head, and it looks like Mox might pass out. But then Mox starts to get angrier as he does. He starts getting himself, pulling himself back a bit, starts like getting a bit aggressive, trying to fight out, and then Danielson then starts landing punches right above his eye, starts wailing on him with these punches. So then Moxley flips his legs over, catches Danielson with his shoulders down on the mat. Danielson obviously doesn't break the hold as well, which keeps himself pinned to the mat without realising, and then we get the 3 counts and Mox picks up the win against Danielson. Now, it's not only just the match that was good, the aftermath was brilliant. You know, Danielson wasn't happy, he starts shoving the referee, and the next thing is Mox and Danielson start going at it again. You know, referees and trainers and stuff come in, try to separate them, no avail. What happens next? William Regal makes his debut in AEW, which was brilliant. It wasn't even rumoured, it wasn't even suggested that it might be a thing. I mean, it was well documented that they were both trained by Regal. He was both of the mentors at one point in their career, but for the fact that we didn't actually see it as being William Regal, it wasn't like rumoured online that he was going to come into the storyline, which I think's great. It's hard to keep things, especially nowadays with the internet. I think they've done this really well. Regal makes his way out, the crowd go insane. You know, they split up and he goes over to Mox and slaps him in the face, and he's like, starts giving him all this. And then Danielson, like, as Regal then makes his way over, Danielson's like, come on then, bring it in for a hug. He slaps Danielson. He starts giving it beans Danielson. Obviously the start of the Blackpool Combat Club. Brilliant match. Like I say, it is like, the finish isn't brilliant, but you know what, it still shows, even though Mox gets the win. You know, he's not, it's not like he's hit him with a paradigm shift or a death rider for the win, or he hasn't choked him out with the Bulldog. You know, Danielson wouldn't let go with the submission move, and he managed to get a quick 3 count that way. So kept both of them strong, which is what you wanted, especially if you're putting them together as a faction. We didn't need one to like KO or tap out the other, so it was good in that respect, and obviously give us the build and the starting foundations of probably my favourite faction in wrestling right now. Maybe second to United Empire, but it's definitely up there, and the storyline's been brilliant so far. So that is number 3. Like I say, you've got to try and get through these enough, because there's a lot to talk about in terms of the matches, especially with the next 2. So number 2 is against Will Ospreay, Windy City Riot 2022. another one from last year. I mean, for me, Jon Moxley, I mean, a lot of people, don't like him for whatever reason. I don't get it. Is it just because it's the cool thing to do right now? I know a lot of WWE fans don't like him because to them, Roman Reigns is the best thing ever, and all Jon Moxley does is bleed. And it's like, well, if that's generally what you think, then you clearly don't understand Jon Moxley's character, and you clearly don't understand anything outside of WWE, and you clearly have probably never even watched one of his matches since he left. Jon Moxley is the best thing that's happened to AEW and for AEW, and I'll argue the toss with anyone over that. He is, for me, Mr. AEW. His consistency with great matches as well. Like last year, his match, like someone posted on Twitter this picture, and it had every single match he was in last year, and like it was just unreal. Like how many bangers he had, how many great matches he had, and how many consistently good matches he had all the way throughout the year. For AEW, for New Japan Pro Wrestling, for New Japan Strong, for GCW, he appeared in not just the one company. And he's the man that they've turned to time and time again when they've needed someone basically to bail them out the crap, especially with all the CM Punk nonsense. So Jon Moxley for me is exactly what AEW needed, and was so glad that he signed that new contract last year. But consistently last year he had the best matches, and for me he was definitely Wrestler of the Year. And so far this year he's had absolutely killer matches again, and I don't even see anyone else being close to him at this point. So whether or not he wins the Wrestler of the Year, I'm sure he doesn't really give a crap. But for me, Mox last year was definitely Wrestler of the Year. This year is more than likely going to be Wrestler of the Year. We're halfway through, and I don't think anyone else has come close to him yet. So, but yeah, number 2 is against Will Ospreay, Windy City Riot 2022. Will Ospreay, another talent I absolutely love. I've loved watching him for years. Watching him on the indies and on the likes of WCPW. Watched a couple of Rev Pro matches, and then obviously he was in TNT over in Liverpool. And he done some Ring of Honor stuff. Went over and done some bits with New Japan as well when they done the Ring of Honor New Japan shows back in the day. And then obviously I met him as well. Met him thanks to Pete in the Wrestle Island back a few years ago now. Back before he was like well known and world famous. He was still famous, but he weren't world famous. Now he's right up there. He's former world champion, former and current US champion. He's won belts from New Japan. He's won belts in Ring of Honor. He's won belts wherever he's gone now, and he is a big name, and for me I think he is a big draw, and probably the one constant good thing that New Japan have had for the last couple of years has been Will Ospreay, and how much he's overperformed for himself and his own standards by stepping up to that main event spot in New Japan. So anyway, this is a great match. Teased it for a while, and then they finally pulled the trigger on it. A lot of back and forth on social media say back and forth. Mox doesn't really do social media, but a lot of Ospreay slagging off Mox on social media and that, and then Mox doing the videos that he does when he's not actually in Japan, and that's probably the best thing, because like I say, he doesn't have like Twitter and stuff. So we have obviously Ospreay comes off first, Mox comes through the crowd as he does, and then Ospreay meets him in the crowd, and it's like, what's going on here? And then actually they just stand there and stare at each other for a minute, and then they just start going at it in the crowd before the match has even started. Ospreay goes up top rope, hits Mox from the top rope to the outside floor with like a corkscrew press, which is brilliant. Ospreay starts to take control because he busts open Mox's head. There's a surprise. I think at this point Mox had been bust open that many times consecutively in 2022 that just the slightest headshot was starting to bust him open. I know you see videos and pictures and you see him sitting there and blades. Everyone knows wrestlers blade, but I think at this point, like literally just take an elbow and take a headbutt, and you'd just be lying there and you'd literally see the blood form, and there was no way he could have quickly bladed himself. I think at one point last year his forehead skin was that thin that just like one strong enough shot to just bust him open. So obviously he starts bleeding, so Ospreay starts working on that, even biting his forehead as well. Like, you probably see like his blood on his mouth and his teeth. It's just nuts to me. Like, I wouldn't put another person's blood in my mouth. I know the adrenaline gets you and stuff. Like, I get it where people do that, but when they start doing all that stuff, it's a bit mad to me. You have to make sure they have a lot of tests and stuff before you do that. Yeah, so then Moxley manages to bust Ospreay open, so Ospreay gets a bit of a cut in his head, which we don't see Ospreay bleeding quite so much. But to be honest with you, in this match, like, Mox brings out, like, I know Ospreay been a heel, and he starts doing that thing where he was just like, they had the match, was it in Rev Pro? He went back and done a match in Rev Pro, and he hit the lad with the hidden blade, like, knocked him out, and then afterwards he just started pummeling with elbows in the back of the head until the ref called it. And so many people like, oh my god, this is disgusting behaviour, and that. And it's like, you've all just been worked. Like, the lad's fine, you know what I mean? So he started getting this bit more aggressive approach, and he was a bit more of a heel and a bit of a D. But, you know, Mox just brought it out that next level. Like, people have got to step up that psychoness, that aggression, haven't they, when they face Mox? You've got to, otherwise you're just going to get mauled and squashed like what Punk did in that 2-minute fantastic match that they had, where Mox just went over him, like, flattened him, and everyone was just like, what the hell has just happened here? Just to really put that on this list for the anti-Punk fans. But yeah, so we have Ospreay puts Mox on the table over the guardrail, you know, where the commentators sit in Japan. They have the rail, then they have the table there. So Ospreay throws Mox onto that, and then goes up onto the top rope, jumps off the top rope outside over the guardrail and through the table on Mox. Like, just nuts. Like, he's got some leap on him. But and then them tables in New Japan is like they're dead narrow. Like, the ones in like WWE and AEW and that are quite wide, and then the ones in New Japan are literally as narrow as can be. But the thickness levels like that, the WWE and AEW ones are like that, and the New Japan ones are like that. So some of them, like, sometimes takes a good while for them to go through, but obviously not in this case with how much he leaps and comes down there. So he goes through that. Mox kicks out after 2, and Ospreay brings it back and hits a shooting star press. Mox hits Death Rider, which then, like, he hits a Death Rider, and then, like, obviously where you get dropped on your head, and then Ospreay comes up and then just hidden blades him. And it's like, what the hell? It's nuts. I don't think it's like people go, oh, it's a no-sell, and it wasn't a no-sell on the finish. It's like he got dropped on his head and then just took him out on the way down, because then they're both lying in the middle of the ring like goosed. Then Mox manages to then pick up Ospreay and hits him with a power driver. Ospreay hits the Blue Thunder, only gets a 2 count. And Mox hits the curb stomp, which, if any of you know, Mox has used it quite a bit over the last few years since leaving the WWE. And to me, like, I do love Seth Rollins, but I think Mox hits a more brutal version of the curb stomp, shall we say, which is no surprise considering the curb stomp was once banned in WWE. But yeah, hits him with the curb stomp, only gets a 2 count on that. Ospreay hits the Oz cutter, gets a 2 count. Ospreay even hits a Oz cutter on the ring apron at one point. They both stood on the ring apron, and he goes and hits him, jumps off the side of the turnbuckle, side of the ring post, sorry, onto Mox, and lands an Oz cutter on the ring apron, which just looks sick. So we get hidden blade for the 2 count, Spanish fly for the 2 count, Death Rider, which then Mox hits the Death Rider but keeps the arms hooked, stands up, second Death Rider, gets the 3 counts. Now, the only thing about this match that annoys me is the end. So at this moment in time, at that moment in time when the match was on, there was a thing that Will Ospreay was doing where he was saying, like, it was like a conspiracy theory against him in New Japan. No one wanted him to go over and stuff, and, you know, there'd been a mistake in a match previous, which by a referee, by an official, which obviously cost Ospreay the match. So he starts doing this thing then when he was losing matches, or when the matches were ending, it was literally by a split seconds, then he could start claiming that there's a big conspiracy over him being near the top. So in this match, what happens is, like I say, he hits the Death Rider, keeps linked up, and then hits him with a second, and then you count 1, 2, and it looks like Ospreay kicks out at the time and goes free. So like Ospreay thinks he's kicked out. Mox thinks Ospreay's kicked out as well, because then Mox moves straight into the bulldog choke, and the bell's already sounded and it's already come up on the screen. Jon Moxley's the winner. But yeah, it looks like Ospreay's kicked out. So then Ospreay does tap it. But the thing is, technically he wins by pinfall, even though it looks like Ospreay kicked out. So obviously they're doing the whole thing of like he gets screwed and that, and he's going to complain, obviously. But it just made the end of the match feel a bit daft, because no one seemed to know what they were doing. Whether it was planned that way or it just felt like that, and then Ospreay then ran with it, I'm not too sure. But it was a bit crap the way it ended. Either way, Mox was getting the win either by pinfall or submission, but it just wasn't like nailed on to as that's what happened, because obviously he slipped straight into the bulldog choke, and then obviously as soon as Mox gets up, he just hits a paradigm shift on or Death Rider onto the referee, as if to say, you know, you messed up, bang, have one of them. But anyway, Mox picks up the win in our number 2 match against Will Ospreay, Windy City Riot 2022. So I'll have a quick run back through, and then we'll tell you what number 1 is. So we have number 5 versus Joey Janela in an unsanctioned match at Fyter Fest 2019. Number 4 is his original match against Ishii in the G1 Climax 29. Number 3 is against Danielson at Revolution last year, which was the start, obviously, of the Blackpool Combat Club. Number 2 is versus Will Ospreay, Windy City Riot 2022. So what could be number 1? To be honest, there's a lot of matches that I went through. Like, I love Moxley and I rewatch his matches all the time, especially the ones from over the last couple of years. And there's so many that could have made this list. I could have literally made it a top 20, a top 30, a top 15, a top 10. But I don't want these videos to be far too long. I mean, the videos are going to be 40, 45 minutes anyway, just by talking about the matches, because I don't want to just give you the list and go, number 5 is this, number 4 is this, number 3 is this, number 2 is this, number 1 is this, and goodbye. I mean, it'd probably get good views, to be fair, but I don't like doing that, because, I mean, I could just literally just post that on the group and you could read it and go, oh yeah, I like doing the videos, I like talking about the matches a bit, and I think it's a better watch. But yeah, so there's a lot of matches that could have been in this that easily missed out. I mean, you know, I was looking at it and I thought, do we do just Jon Moxley? Do we do just Jon Moxley after WWE? Do we do Dean Ambrose as well, or how do we work it out? So I started looking at his matches and I started watching them, and I still hadn't quite figured out whether I was going to do his whole career, when I was going to do a separate one for Dean Ambrose later down the line, or what I was going to do. And to be honest with you, it makes no difference to me whether it's just a Jon Moxley video or his whole entire career. Either way, the top 5 matches are all Jon Moxley from the last few years. And that is because, like, as much as I do like Dean Ambrose, and he did have some good matches, like the one against Triple H at Roadblock, you know, Shield versus Evolution, Shield versus Wyatt Family, you know, Ambrose versus AJ Styles. There was some really, really good matches, but none of them would make the top 5. None of them are any better than this. So, to be honest, yeah, I probably will do a Dean Ambrose one at some point. But obviously, because I've just done the Jon Moxley one, don't need to do that anytime soon. But either way, count this as Jon Moxley's top 5. Count this as, you know, basically Jonathan Good's top 5. Is top 5 in his whole career. Makes no difference. Like, none of the WWE matches would have been in this anyway. You know, you've got matches that missed out, like El Desperado. He's faced him twice now in 2 absolute banging matches. You know, he's faced literally everyone you can face. Suzuki, Nagata, you know, some great matches there. Like I say, Ishii twice. He's had matches in AEW against everyone. Even his match against Kingston was good. Brody Lee, Darby Allin back when he was champion the first time. And then that's not even looking at tag matches. You know, we re-tagged with Kingston again. And they went against the Bucks and stuff like that, you know. Tag team with Kingston and going against Lance Archer and Minoru Suzuki as well. It's like just matches galore you could pick through, and like I say, he's been so consistent over the last couple of years in the matches you had. You could literally have so many matches in this. I actually found this one the hardest, just to narrow it down to 5, to be honest. But like I say, I'm a big Mox fan, so there's no surprise. It took me a while. But number 1 is against Kenny Omega, the best bout machine, the cleaner, Kenny Omega. And it's not the sparkler match, you know, the exploding barbed wire death match that it was supposed to be, that turned into sparklers at the end. It's their first match, the lights out match, Full Gear 2019, and what a fantastic match it was. And I so enjoyed rewatching it, because I remember most of it. I do remember most of it, because I mean, I rewatched this match a lot, especially when it first happened. It was so good. And because, like I say, you know, Mox had been like PG'd basically in WE, didn't really do much proper hardcore stuff, did he? And then obviously he had that stint in New Japan by this point, and he had that match against Joey Janela as well. But this just took it to the next level. You know, fast paced against Omega, you know, using chairs, trash cans, beers in the crowd, because he starts in the crowd. You know, Mox tries to get the upper hand with barbed wire bat. Sorry, something in my eye. Kenny Omega gets the broom, the brush, you know, because he's the cleaner, wrapped in barbed wire, and that crack to the back of the head, like Mox is leading out, and he just goes like that with the brush. Looks like nothing, but literally, because it's got barbed wire on it, as he hits him, the back of his head starts, just literally, he's there on the ropes, and you just see the blood start coming down him already. And then obviously he gets Mox, and he starts brushing his back with the barbed wire, just scratching across his back. It was just brutal. Sorry, I've lost where I'm up to. Yeah, so and then Omega gets dropped onto they have this board with mouse traps, and JR makes a big thing, and he's like, "This is a first for me, guys. I've never seen this before." It's like, right, okay, yeah, calm down, love. You know, Omega gets dropped back first onto that. The mouse traps are all snapping on his back. Moxley brings out this mad gold chain. It's like a big massive gold chain, so they start doing moves on that, like they're both hitting each other over the back of it, trying to choke each other. We get moves onto it, you know, backdrops and stuff onto this pile of steel chains, and then, you know, Omega wraps the chain round, flings Mox over the ropes and chokes him, sort of like what Hangman did to Mox, but obviously he didn't tap out or pass out on this occasion. He was just dangling for a bit by his neck with the chain. So yeah, that was good. Omega hits the Rise of the Terminator, you know, the one where he does the flip out of the ring on Mox, and they both go crashing through a table that was stood up. And in the build up to this, which I loved, was when Mox attacked Omega, and they were up at the top in the crowd area, and there was that little seating area, I can't remember what it was for now, and they had the table, or like a glass table, and Mox hits the paradigm shift on Omega, and he goes head first through the glass table. Well, then obviously in this match, Omega goes and gets this bag, and it turns out it's shards of glass from that table. So he has like this big chunk, and he goes to try and jab him in the head of it and jab him in the eye, and obviously Mox manages to get it off. But then Omega opens his fingers and starts like slicing in between his fingers, and the crowd are going, "You sick," you know, they just go for it. And it's great as well, the crowd, like, at one point they're all for Mox, at one point they're all for Omega. I love it when crowds are split. You just want a really good match, and you're not even sure you want to win at this point. Omega then smashes up like dust in the end. He smashes it up dead fine, or the glass puts it out in the middle of the ring. So we see each of them both end up getting dropped into that. See Omega pouring it into Mox's mouth and then hitting him with a V-trigger, and then obviously you see the blood coming out of Moxley's mouth, which was just nuts as well. So I think I've forgotten anything now. You have Mox then, after he's had that, starts crawling up the ramp, because it was back when they had the ramp direct from the ring. So he's climbing up there, and Omega comes up after him with the screwdriver, and then they start going at it at the top. And then Omega shouts for the Elite, and they bring out this big like metal bed type thing. It was like, what do they call it? Barbed wire spider web. So it was like, literally looks like a big massive old metal bed frame with the barbed wire in the middle, and then they each take it in turns to try and put each other into it. And anyway, Mox ends up suplexing Omega off, and they both get absolutely caught in this barbed wire mesh that you're like, and so then obviously they get out of there, and then they have these big full gear light things. There's some mad like design thing for either side of the ramp, and it was basically full gear, big round thing, and it was like lit up with all lights and stuff behind it. So Mox gets V-triggered through that, which, and when you watch it as well, Omega actually takes the worst of it, because Mox gets V-triggered, obviously goes like back of his head and that, but as Omega follows through, like you see in the slow replay, the top of his head catches and go whack like that. So Mox ends up getting up before Omega. So it's just nuts. It's just non-stop action, non-stop brutality, and it's a side of Omega that we didn't really see before. You know, the Best Bout Machine, he had some fantastic matches with like Okada and Ibushi and stuff, but we didn't actually see him with like a hardcore-esque style, if you like. And we end up having Mox gets like this blade out, and it's like, hang on, it's a bit too much, but he starts cutting the sides of the ring, and he cuts all the way around, and then he pulls back the ring mat, and you see the boards, them pine boards underneath, which look brutal, by the way, when people get dropped on that. So then obviously Mox goes for the, does he hit him with it? Yeah, sorry. Mox hits the paradigm shift on Omega, gets a 2 count. Omega then power drives Mox on it, goes up to the top to hit the Phoenix Splash. You know, he's facing the other way and then flips around and comes down. And as he does it, Mox rolls out the way. So Omega obviously lands on the pine. But as he lands on the pine, he literally lands face first. Like, he absolutely cracks his head on that. And like straight away you can see this lump and cut forming in the corner of his eye, where he just absolutely eats the pine. Before then Mox hits another paradigm shift, and it's more like an elevated one, you know, where he leans all the way back, so he lands literally on the top of the head, pulls him all the way back and lands the paradigm shift and picks up the 3 count. So that is all. That is my top 5 Jon Moxley matches. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and hopefully I've triggered some matches that if you haven't watched you can go and watch, and obviously if you've already seen them, then let me know in the comment section, do you agree or disagree with my rankings of Jon Moxley matches? Is there any that should have been in there? Are you a big WWE fan and expecting me to put some Dean Ambrose matches in there? Like I said, there is some really good matches, they just don't even come close to these. I probably will do a Dean Ambrose one at some point though, because I did like Dean Ambrose in WWE. But, you know, Jon Moxley, since leaving, he's just a different animal, isn't he? He's just uncaged, and it's just violence, and I love it. So, like I say, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my selections. Let me know what your top 5 Jon Moxley matches are. And as always, thank you for watching. Give us a like, subscribe, and comment. And keep an eye out for more wrestling-related content coming soon.